making plans for Nigel.
Hi everyone, why aren't we ready for mass EV adoption in the UK? Why isn't it happening right now? And I think I've got part of the answer. I don't know everything, but I think through a little test that I've been doing with my car, it's highlighted to me one of the significant reasons why mass EV adoption isn't taking off right now. And frankly, I don't think it's going to in the next few years either. For those of you that are new to the channel or just aren't aware, I charge my Kona electric mostly at home on solar power. In the summer, I have such an abundance of sunshine that I can basically charge the car and use it like a home storage battery. I can absorb all the extra free energy that I'm getting from my solar panels, store it in the car at a high state of charge, 80 to 85% state of the charge most of the time, and that basically is me maximizing my usage of the solar energy. I can store it and then use it whenever I want to drive. In the winter it's different because there's so little sun around. I'm tending to have a lower state of charge, and anytime the sun comes out I'm trying to charge, but it's just not going high enough. It's not gradually going up and up and up. It's basically not providing enough for the journeys I want. So when I'm charging, there's no point in charging the car back up to 100% because the next day might be sunny and then I've got no space to store energy in the car. So I keep it low and then top up as and when I needed. So my state of charge over the November-December period has probably been more 25 to 35%. And when I did that, it made me think, well, if I'm only charging to 50%, this is almost like a Kona 32, a 32 kilowatt hour Kona, half the battery size. And I thought further on from that, thinking, well, maybe I could do a test now. Maybe over the winter, because I'm not going to charge above 50%, let's set a charge limit on the car to 50% and not actually do it. Deliberately avoid charging above 50% and make this car a Kona 32 and see how I can cope with a smaller battery EV and see whether the additional charging is a problem to me or it's not. So anyway, that was the plan. I had the idea. I thought I would maximize the use of the winter period where I'd had a low state of charge anyway and do this test. So yeah, I've set the limit on the car to 50%, as you can see here, and charged it up to the 50% for the journey that I needed, and carried on day after day just using the car to see how it changed my charging habits, how it changed my thought process about having a smaller battery car with less range. And what I noticed was, for the first couple of weeks, it didn't make any difference whatsoever. I really didn't care that the car had 25 to 35% in it, because I was only doing 20, 30, 40 mile journeys. It just wasn't a problem. And when I topped back up again, I didn't need to even top up to the 50%. I didn't need to top up full. There was no point until I had a bigger journey. And then obviously I did. I topped up to the 50% because I want some spare contingency in case our plans change. And then we had the distance, the range that we needed for the journey. So that all went really, really well. So all of my journeys were fine, and even a longer journey that I did was absolutely fine. And personally, I have no problem with charging. There is an abundance of chargers everywhere, and it only takes getting your mobile phone out and finding them. But here's the but. Susan was planning on a trip to go to Newmarket, and Newmarket is 55 miles from where we live. So that's 110 miles. Plus she's going to do some social visiting when she's there, so add another, let's say 20 miles. That's 130 miles. And then how much mileage do you want on the car when you get back home? Do I really want Susan thinking that she's going to be driving along the A47 with, 5% left in the car or just 10 miles of range? So 20 miles range, 30 miles range, that's what you really want to come home with as a nice comfortable contingency and not to have to panic. And that extra contingency, if the weather changes and suddenly it starts blowing a gale and you're into a headwind and it's driving rain, then the efficiency is so bad you're going to want a good 30-mile additional range, because what's that, 25%? Or more, 20-25%, something like that. So as a contingency, that's almost not a lot actually for a journey of 130 miles. The weather conditions could change that your efficiency really is a good 20-25% different. So that was what I was working out. I was doing the analysis thinking 110 miles on the trips, add 20 for popping backwards and forwards, 130, add 30 on, I need 160. Well, 160 miles, half the capacity of the Kona, that would be a range of 320 miles. That's not enough. That doesn't work. So in winter, in poorer conditions, the Kona's probably going to do, let's say, a reasonable conditions, not the absolute worst. So probably it's going to do 250, 260 miles of range for us. So half is going to give us 130. Well, basically that's there and back and no contingency. So my thought process is, if I say to Susan, I'm not charging the car beyond 50%, depending on the weather conditions, you're going to be really, really tight, or you're going to have to charge when you're out. Are you comfortable doing it? And, you know, we knew of one charger that we'd visited on the route before, and that is a pod point at Elvedon on the A11. But the last time we were there, it wasn't working. So it's, okay, there are lots of chargers, there are thousands of them, but on the route we're going, there's only one we're aware of. And at the other end at Newmarket, there is another one, but that's Ecotricity. And last time we went there, didn't work at all. So it's, actually finding a charger isn't the easiest thing. Yes, the nearest one, there's a Hyundai garage in Bury St Edmunds, but that's like 15 miles out of our way. So we're starting to get into the realms of, I'm absolutely fine. I can look on ZapMap, I can work it out, I can go and find a charger. I know there's one in Attleborough, I know there's one in Wyndham. Those two are on the A11. Yes, we've got to go off route and into the towns. They're in town centre, damned car parks, stupid place to put them. Great for local people that go shopping in those towns, or visitors that want to visit that town, but other than that, for people en route, useless. So it's, I'm fine. Now it's the handing over to Susan, handing over to someone that literally, she wants to get in the car, go to see a friend, go and have cake and coffee in the coffee shop, have a big chin wag, spend the day with her friend, get in the car and come home. She doesn't want to add half an hour or more to her journey, going off route and going to a charger somewhere, and the place where she's going didn't have a charger either. So this is my thought process, that something that is absolutely fine and there's loads of chargers and there's no issue and I'm prepared to do, suddenly when confronted with, will I send Susan out in the car with only 50% battery and let her suffer this test that I'm trying to do, or will I top up with more? And lo and behold, that's exactly what I did. I put more in the car, so I chickened out. I stopped doing the test and I added more charge to the car. I think I actually sent her off with about 65-70% in the car in the end, to make sure there was absolutely plenty of contingency, and whatever she chose to do, she wouldn't come back empty of charge. Now, if I take that scenario as a real scenario of a test, that if I had a 32 kilowatt hour Kona, my first attempt at my other half, Susan, my wife, going out and using the car where the range was stretched where she had to charge, she didn't want to do it. She's confident enough. She knows how the things work. She's never used the apps before. She's never done the actual planning. She has relied on me, but she could do it. You know, she's not a daft person, but she doesn't really want to do it. And there's the crux. Small battery EVs that have a range of less than 200 miles, you often need to charge when you're going on a longer journey. And yet the masses don't want to. Me as an enthusiast, me as somebody that chose to go electric, that bought into the idea, that's done the research and is happy to use the apps, I'm happy to have the inconvenience of the extra bit of charging for the benefit of going EV. All of that is easy and positive for me. So me going EV is like saying, well, come on everyone, you can do what I do. It is easy. And there's some truth to that. But the reality is, the masses aren't like me. The masses just want to get in a car and just want to go. And chargers are not easy to find. They are not visible. Without planning, without getting a mobile phone app out, they are not on your actual route. The exception might be motorway service stations. So for me, I think that's the problem that we've got. The masses don't want the hassle. The masses don't want to be pushed and forced to do something different. They want it easy. And at the moment, moving to an EV is not easy. It adds a level of complexity and a level of hassle on the planning, the thoughts about your mileage, about your distance. and they're not being able to find chargers, so actually have to research and know where they are. It's all hassle you could do without, and that is the biggest thing that is holding back the mass adoption of EVs in my mind. It's the not knowing. It's fear of the unknown. It's not range anxiety. It's the charging. It's the chargers. So our problem is that even though we're putting more and more and more in, and we keep advertising in our EV community how many thousands there are now, they're not any more visible than they were, unless you're on social media and you're paying attention on ZapMap and where new chargers are going. I mean, I'm aware that there's new chargers arriving in Norfolk. Susan's not, and Joe Blogs isn't. They don't know where these things are, and there's no easy way of finding them without using a smartphone and without planning. If you then couple that anxiety about charging and not wanting to do it and the hassle of doing it and the planning of it, if you link that in with the, I actually think, conspiracy, the deliberateness of the car manufacturers to only produce small battery EVs. I mean, look at this Kona, 64 kilowatt hour Kona, long range, absolutely brilliant range, but they haven't gone beyond the 64 kilowatt hour. But nobody else has either. Nobody else has released anything that beats this long range. All of the cars coming out for the, last year and this year, they're all smaller range. The progress of cars with longer range isn't occurring. It seems like the manufacturers are deliberately keeping it lower. I mean, just look at Mazda and launching their new car, deliberately advertising, saying they are putting smaller batteries in, less than 40 kilowatt hours, because they believe that's the right way forward. That's the most economical, best way for the environment. They must know that's not what people want. They must know that the public wants confidence and longer range, but they're not giving it to them because they're deliberately choosing not to. In my opinion, it is a ploy. It's a ploy that they don't want to sell many cars, so they don't want to make them that popular. They don't want it to advance to mass hysteria that everyone's buying 60, 70, 80 kilowatt hour cars and loving them and saving money. They don't want that to happen yet. They're not ready for that. They want to sell more petrol engines. If manufacturers are constantly delivering cars that have smaller range and need charging more, and it's the need charging more and the anxiety of that that's drawing us back, we are stuck in this situation where our advancement of electric cars is stalled. It's stalled waiting on the car manufacturers to be ready to sell en masse. Now, yes, we're waiting and we're ready for that, and you hear news that Hyundai, for example, are increasing their production volumes, so that will get rid of some of the latent demand that's there. But what they've done is put the price up more to hold that demand back again, and their increase in demand is more like, instead of 1,000 cars, they're going to produce 2,000. It's not 100,000. It's not a million cars. It's just small potatoes. It's just not enough. And Volkswagen, well, we've had the promise of Volkswagen producing the mass-produced Golf-like car, the ID, for so long, and now it's delayed again. How long will it really be before you can walk into a showroom and just buy an electric Golf or an electric ID from Volkswagen with a short delivery time? We're just miles away from that. So 2020, year of the EV? No, not in my mind. The year that there are more cars on the market and more cars being launched and more interest, yes, and the variety of what's available is brilliant, but the actual availability of them, no. And the actual demand across the masses, no. In the UK, if anything, the government are more likely to reduce the subsidy again, which again will make them seem more expensive. It's going to slow down the adoption of EVs. There aren't very many councils and very many towns and cities that are banning diesels yet and doing the opposite, encouraging electric vehicles in with reduced car parking rates or more charging points, etc. It's really slow. So everything is just dragging us back slowly. I'm sat here as an EV enthusiast, knowing, not just because I love the cars, but knowing they're better for the environment. They're quieter, there's no emissions, they're cheaper to run long term, there's no servicing, they're easier to drive. They are engaging, they're a lovely car, full of good safety technology. They're great things. We should all be driving electric cars, but it ain't happening. And it ain't happening for those two reasons, I think. And it's one, mass adoption will not happen because the masses don't want it. They don't want to change. They don't want to be forced to change. And in my opinion, how do you fix that? It's penalising. It's penalising the petrol and diesel car owners. I mean, if you start doubling the car parking rates for diesel cars in city centres, and halving the rates for electric cars, or making it free, plus you can top up with charge as well for free. If the councils provide that, then they're going to have lovely clean city centre environments to encourage more shoppers in, and a more healthy environment. But people will start to think, well, when I change my car, I'm not going to buy a diesel. It costs me a fortune to park. And that will discourage them. Suddenly the price will seem cheaper to go electric. And that's what we need. We need more incentives that stand out, that make electric cars seem like the better choice for the masses. Because then they might choose to have that inconvenience of planning journeys a bit more. And that's the absolute crux of it. We can't force electric cars on people. They've got to want to do it. And the way to make them want to do it is make it so financially restrictive to buy anything else that they choose to buy an electric car, or you've got to make electric cars just so much better than petrol cars and diesel cars. And the filling up and the fueling of them is not better when you're in a smaller, lower range EV that you have to charge out, and that charger is not on your convenient route of where you're going. And it does cost you extra time in doing it, more than the couple of minutes filling up. So the smaller range EVs are exacerbating that problem and making it last longer. If every year the range of electric cars got better, the efficiency of the cars got better, so that every time someone's buying a new one, there's less charging required, then there'll be less reliance on that infrastructure, and we can then advance in the use of EVs en masse. So anyway, there you go. It's a bit of a rant almost, isn't it? But I was really disappointed that I tried my test to live with a 32 kilowatt hour Kona, and I physically could, until I was sending Susan out in the car. I didn't want to give her the inconvenience. So there you go, that's my thought for the day, my rant for the day, talking about why EVs are not going to take off. 2020 is not going to be the year of the EV. We're a few years away from it, and it is a conspiracy in my mind because the car manufacturers are trying to force us to do what they want, still run petrol and diesel cars for a few years yet. I hope Tesla keeps going from success to success. I hope the Model Y comes out, and I hope after the Model Y, God, if only they could do a Model A, a Model B, a small EV that's instead of £30,000-40,000, £20,000. If they could do that, yeah, and sell it en masse, I think that could drag the other manufacturers to accelerate themselves. What we really need is the car manufacturers to not be comfortable with their timescale for going electric car. What we need is them under pressure to have to do it, and have to do it sooner in volume. I truly hope I'm wrong. I truly hope that there's more hope for the future and it isn't such a big conspiracy and I'm completely wrong. And I also hope I haven't judged the masses incorrectly, that they're quite capable of using mobile phones and apps, and they really, really want to all go EV, because it would be a better world with electric cars everywhere. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for sharing my videos. If you haven't subscribed, go on. I'm so close to 5,000 subscribers. Just 50 to go as of today. So if you haven't subscribed, please click the subscribe button. You don't have to click the notification bell if you don't want to. It's entirely up to you. Thank you all for watching. See you again soon. Bye-bye.